If you're doing full stack development in 2026, you're probably using either GPT-5.5 or Opus 4.8. Those are both excellent LLMs, but they are pretty expensive. So when a newcomer comes into town, it's open sourced, it's MIT licensed, and it's 1/8 of the price of those models, and it performs just under Opus 4.8 in the coding benchmarks. That might be of interest to you. That new model is Zipu's GLM 5.2 model, and I just wanted to try it out for myself to see how it worked, how easy it was to use, and how it performed in real world full stack applications as opposed to kind of generic benchmarks. And before I show you, let me just say this is not an ad for anybody. This is not an ad for Zipu. I don't even know who they are or any of the other LLM vendors. This is just me and my personal experience in trying this stuff out. My methodology on this started pretty cheap and pretty simple. I created to-do applications on both GLM 5.2 and on Opus 4.8 using two different harnesses to see if there was a harness bias in there using Claude Code as well as Open Code. Now, one thing about GLM 5.2 is you're going to need to find a place that's going to host it. GLM 5.2 is a 750 billion parameter model that is not huge by frontier standards, but it is huge. If you want to try and run that locally, you will not be able to do that unless you have something like the new GTX station that NVIDIA just announced, and I don't even know how much money that's going to be. That's going to be crazy, but you're not going to run this on commodity hardware locally. You're going to be lucky if you get 75 billion parameters on that. You're going to need external hardware for this. So your choices are you can go to z.ai, which is, I guess, this Zipu company. I didn't want to do that. So for this test, I primarily used Ollama. I ended up using also OpenRouter because I wanted to see if there was a difference there. But you're going to need to use one of those. And I think actually Ollama is the easiest. I paid for the $20 subscription for Ollama's cloud service. And to run GLM 5.2 using Ollama is actually pretty easy. To do it on Open Code, you just use this Ollama launch command. You give it the command, in this case, Open Code, and then you tell what model you want. So GLM 5.2 in their cloud service, so :cloud. And that brings up Open Code with GLM 5.2 in the cloud. To do the same thing for Claude, you just change out Open Code for Claude, and now you're using GLM 5.2 on cloud. I can go over here to model and I can see that I've got GLM 5.2 cloud. But as you can see, Claude Code is really tuned for the Anthropic ecosystem. I mean, there's sonnet, haiku there. What does that even mean? If you go to, for example, status, when it comes to total cost here, you're going to get their calculation based on the tokens and their metrics for their numbers versus what you're actually going to pay on something like Ollama on that $20 a month plan. But that's how easy it is to use these models with these CLI apps. I wasn't able to get GLM 5.2 to work with Cursor, but I honestly didn't try all that hard. Now, the results of that to-do test were actually pretty interesting. And of course, all of that code and all of the subsequent code is available to you on GitHub for free in a link in the description right down below. What I came away with understanding after doing that to-dos example was that GLM 5.2 does create code that's just as good as Opus 4.8 in those small scenarios. And the amount of tokens is pretty much the same between those two. The only differential is the cost. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but the performance side of it as well. Apparently there's performance gains when it comes to GLM 5.2 versus Opus, but that really depends on where you run it. But I really wasn't satisfied with that. So I wanted to go and make a larger example, kind of get a real sense of more of the code quality for other things. For example, like authorization, logging in, logging out, roles, database, verification, testing, a more in-depth example, multi-pages. So I created another set of tests that were a larger example. This one was an issue tracker. The issue tracker in this case is called Atlas. Just log in, and we can see that this is a standard CRUD application, meaning create, read, update, delete. So if this is the kind of stuff that you're working on, both of these models is going to do well for you. And the result of this test was 4 complete applications, Opus and GLM, Claude code versus open code, and honestly, where it counts and with the non-deterministic nature of these models, both of these outputs were remarkably good. And you should probably run all of this through a code review engine anyway, like a CodeRabbit, and they're just going to find different bugs between these two models, but it's going to be largely the same. The difference here is largely going to be in price, and if you're paying by API and not on a subscription plan, that's actually going to be a big deal to you. But let's talk about performance. And I mentioned that this is an MIT open source model, which means that it can be run on all kinds of different services. You're not going to be hitting any export bans or anything like that take away models. This is an open source model and anyone can run it. In this case, I'm comparing Ollama to OpenRouter. So what I've done in this case is just create a very simple prompt and run it 5 times to go and see what the tokens per second was on average. And with Ollama, it's kind of all over the place. It can be really low, it can be really high, which kind of gives you a feel when you're actually developing with it that's a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes it just gets hung up and it's just doing nothing. And other times it's ripping through stuff. So that's kind of interesting. And then OpenRouter, depending on what provider you use, has blazingly fast performance if somewhat inconsistent. I did do a full run of the issue tracker on OpenRouter, but was actually unable to complete it. I'm not really sure whether that was just OpenRouter being overloaded or what, but yeah, it was fast, but it actually didn't get all the way through the project, which means that I've had to restart it, which is not terrible. And of course, n equals 1 here. So, read into that what you will. Bottom line is, if you have a subscription to something like Claude or GPT, it's probably just going to be easier to stick with that for your coding. If you don't, and you want a cheaper alternative that gives you really, honestly, everything you need for full stack development, yeah, GLM 5.2 is going to be excellent for that. Just pick your provider with care. All right, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to put that in the comment section right down below. In the meantime, if you like the video, hit that like button. If you really like the video, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell, and you'll be notified the next time a new blue collar coder comes out.